Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's information session. It's our game development and game design bootcamp information session. The title of the session today is How to Get a Job in the Gaming Industry and why YouTube tutorials are not necessarily the answer. So we are going to kick off the presentation in just a few minutes here. Before I do that, I always like to just make sure that everybody in the audience can see me okay, everybody can hear me okay. I believe I enabled the React emojis, so feel free to give me some thumbs up emojis. You can use it in the bottom there under the React button, or you can type in the chat log. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Perfect. I can see some chats. I can see some thumbs up coming through. Awesome. So in the bottom corner there, I did mention the chat log. There's also a questions tab and a polls tab. So I did drop one poll in there. I'm going to do my best to remember to put two more polls in there throughout the presentation so that people have the opportunity to complete those before we finish here today. But the first one is in there. I think it's a poll checking on what sort of industries everybody's currently working in. And then there's also a questions tab. So throughout the entire presentation, you guys can chat, you can interact with us. But if you have any questions for us at Circuit Stream, if you have any questions for the two speakers we have here today, do your best to try and put them into the questions tab. And if we don't answer it right away, just know that we're not ignoring you on purpose. Well, I guess we kind of are, because the intent is we are going to do a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So we will put the questions up for the class, so to say, and we'll kind of go through that and make sure everybody can see and hear the answers for each of the questions. So that's kind of how that's going to work. I also invite everyone to share where they are joining us from. I am personally from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. That's where our company is initially founded. And I'm assuming we're going to have lots of people from all over the place in here today. Tasmania is the first one. Amazing. Vancouver, Edmonton, New Jersey, Nevada, Toronto. Ooh, another Calgary. Yeah, Calgary. Hello, everybody. USA, Kelowna. Oh, I love Kelowna. California. I love California. Ontario, it's where I'm originally from. LA. Hello, everyone. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today, guys. I'm going to go ahead and get the presentation kicked off here. So without further ado, let me make this screen bigger because we don't necessarily need to see my face up here right now. And we're going to kick it off. So I'll start by announcing who I am here. So my name is Tyler. I have worked with Circuit Stream for just over 2.5 years. I previously worked in travel and tourism for about 10 plus years. I always joke and say that was my pre-COVID career, and working in tech and education is my post-COVID career. I'm a video game enthusiast myself. I consider myself a senior Fortnite player. A previous speaker we had made a joke about shooting 12-year-olds, and now that's all I can think about every time I say I'm a Fortnite player. So, but that's me. We also will have some amazing speakers here today with us. The first is going to be Vincent James. So Vincent is in our current game design bootcamp, and I'm going to go over some questions with him when he pops up on stage and just kind of ask him about his current experience in the course. And then we're also going to have Leo coming up following Vincent. Leo's going to share his information. He is a game development bootcamp alum. He also works with us now at Circuit Stream, and he works at Unity. So he's going to share on his course experience and kind of what he's been doing since. And just share some of that information with everybody in the crowd here. So let's kick off the actual presentation. So today I'm going to show everyone how you can break into the gaming industry as developers and designers with no prior experience. Earning certifications is an amazing way to do this, as it allows you to expand your knowledge and skills, allows you to gain credibility, get a competitive advantage, and become a part of a connected community. I'm also going to share some information on a little bit of a giveaway at the end of today's presentation. So if you're interested in that, just stick around to the end and I'll share that information with you as well. A little bit about Circuit Stream. So Circuit Stream began in 2015 through a network of developers, designers, and creators, and is now a leading provider of technology learning in augmented and virtual reality, game development and design, product management, and software development. We also partner with industry-leading companies and leading educational institutions to offer courses and training to those looking to learn more about these emerging and engaging technologies. So just a little bit about us. Circuit Stream takes pride in the consistent and positive feedback and reviews that we receive from our students. We currently have an 83% placement rate for job-seeking students and a 4.3 Trustpilot rating, which is amazing. Just from our 2022-2023 game development bootcamp, achieved an overall graduation graduation rate, I'm going to need some water during this presentation, just a forewarning for everyone. Graduation rate of 83.3%, 80% of whom are working with Unity. We also have an 88% satisfaction rate with our learners, which is amazing. The primary tool that we use in our game development bootcamp is Unity. I'm going to share a little bit more information about the actual bootcamps in just a minute, but I'm going to start off with some of the tools that we use. So Unity is one of the world's leading platforms for creating and operating interactive real-time 3D content. You can use it to create games, visualizations, immersive experiences, and more. And as you can see on screen, 70% of the top 1,000 mobile games were made using Unity, with Unity creators located all around the world. So something I should pause here for a moment and let everybody know, this entire presentation will be recorded and sent out to everybody after the event. As soon as I hit a slide with a few stats on it, I know there's probably some people in the audience wanting this information. Some people might be scrambling to get a pen and paper. You don't have to. You're welcome to. You can take screenshots. You can take pictures on your phone, but we will email out a copy of this full presentation to everybody after the fact. So you can just kind of sit back and relax if you'd prefer to do that. Here's a few examples of games with Unity. I mean, there's millions of examples, but some notable ones we can see, like Pokemon Go, Beat Saber, Monument Valley. There's just a bunch on here that we could mention. And then similarly with Unreal, Unreal is the main tool that we use in the design bootcamp. The Unreal Engine was designed by Epic Games and is another global leading platform used for creating and operating interactive real-time 3D content. It provides a comprehensive suite of tools for game developers and for game designers to use. And a fun fact about Unreal, over 50% of the next-gen games are being built in the Unreal Engine. On screen, you can see some examples of games that were created using the Unreal Engine. Of course, I put Fortnite first and foremost in the top left box because that's my favorite. So. The gaming industry has grown significantly in recent years, and with that, the career opportunities obviously have as well. Becoming a game developer or designer can be a rewarding career choice for individuals who are passionate about gaming, or for those who just have a flair of creative and interactive experiences, problem solving, and technology. On screen now, you can see some of the top reasons why people would choose to work as game developers and as game designers. In the US, there are over 3,000 game studios employing almost 300,000 people, which is insane. And in Canada, there's been tremendous growth over the last few years. We have over 900 active game studios, which is a 35% increase since just 2019. Not only that, the game industry has contributed to over $5 billion in Canada's GDP, which is a 29% increase over just the last 4 years, which again is insane. So as you can see, there is a ton of potential, and I'll be sharing this presentation with everyone. I know I mentioned it a minute ago, but all these stats will come for you guys there. As a game designer, you have the power to shape exciting new games. The average salary for game designers is $120,000 per year in the US and in Canada. There's a range of job titles in this field, but we've added some examples such as game designer, level designer, systems designer, et cetera, et cetera. Just a few examples on screen there. And currently there are over 8,000 job postings for game developers in the US alone, with an average salary sitting of about $121,000 annually. Now is a great time to get into the industry. There are some titles that you could end up with on the game development side. Of course, game developer would be the top one, game engineer, game programmer, et cetera, et cetera. So some information there. These are just a few of the many companies that hire for the positions that we've mentioned on the previous slides. So many well-known companies such as EA Games, Rockstar, Epic Games are hiring in this space. But there's also a ton of smaller indie studios like Cloudhead Games, Extremely OK Games, and they're hiring in this space as well. In fact, sometimes it's easier to break in the doors in some of those smaller studios, gain some experience, and eventually start working at some of the larger studios as well. We've actually partnered with some of these companies that you can see on the screen here too. Just a quick shout out to some of our partners. I'm going to go ahead and share some information on the two boot camps, a little bit more specific information, I guess. I'll start off with the game design boot camp. So this bootcamp is designed for those who want to enter the industry as a designer, want to establish their own company, or utilize game design skills in their current role. The great thing about this game bootcamp is that it is project-based, so you'll gain practical skills while working on real-world projects. Over the course of 30 weeks, you'll learn how to analyze game design elements, conceive gameplay concepts, design game mechanics, create functioning game prototypes, and test novel gameplay ideas. I'm going to take that opportunity to take a sip of water. because I can hear my mouth getting dry. You're also going to learn the role about a game designer and its various specializations and how they fit into game production. So that's the game design bootcamp, kind of summed up. The game development bootcamp is designed for those looking to get into the gaming industry as a developer, those looking to start their own companies, or those looking to bring Unity development into their current roles. This course is completely beginner friendly, but it does tackle advanced concepts as you progress. So if you do have a bit of coding experience, or if you've taken like one of our 10-week XR development courses, for example, you'll still get a ton out of the course. It's just the first week or two will probably be a little bit of a refresher. And for those who have no skills, it's amazing because we start right at the very beginning and start with the foundations and build up. Another amazing thing about this bootcamp is that it's project-based. So you'll learn concepts in class and apply them to real-life projects. You get to create your own ideas as the final assignment. And you can work on this with a team of other students or on your own to create a gamer experience from start to finish using the skills that you learn throughout the bootcamp itself. So our students really enjoy this aspect of the course because it allows them to build up a portfolio of projects. So once they complete the course, they've got a portfolio ready to go, which is amazing. So I've mentioned Unity and Unreal, but there are quite a few other tools that would be used in both of the boot camps. We're always iterating on the course materials and tools to ensure that they are the most up-to-date with what's currently being used in the industry. So depending if you've taken a course with us previously, if you're currently in the course, some of these tools on screen probably have been swapped out over time. And in the future, we'll probably see other ones listed here as well. So yeah, that's just a little bit on the tools that we use. And then, as I mentioned, you'll be finishing the course with a portfolio of projects, but you'll also finish the course with lifetime access to CircuitStream community on Discord. The community currently has over 1,200 members, which is amazing. It's past students, industry professionals, staff, instructors at CircuitStream. It's amazing. You basically get access to that for the rest of your life. And then, of course, there's a certification that comes out of the courses as well that you can see on screen there. And I'm going to go ahead and invite Wanai up on stage. Wanai is the CircuitStream Student Outcome Manager, and she's going to share a little bit of information on our career development component from the boot camps. Hello, Wanai.
All right. Thank you so much, Tyler. So all of our boot camps are structured with ample career support and guidance. The CircuitStream Career Labs teach students how to leverage technical and behavioral strengths, gain awareness of the digital ecosystem, create compelling portfolios, elevate digital presence, learn how to network effectively, as well as become interview ready for industry jobs. Our career and networking support really sets our programs apart from others that you may find. Every student has different objectives coming in, but those looking for new jobs or to improve their current positions find this aspect of the course incredibly helpful. In fact, 92% of our 2022 to 2023 game development graduates utilized our career services support. As part of the career support, our boot camps also come with a student pitch day, which happens towards the end of the program. Students have the opportunity to showcase their capstone projects to hiring and industry partners. This event is an amazing way to add people to your network, be considered for any job openings they may have, or to just receive feedback on your projects from hiring managers that are working in the industry.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Wanai. If anybody has any questions about the career support that we offer through CircuitStream and through the boot camps here, of course, just reach out. We're happy to respond, or we can connect you directly with Wanai. Wanai is happy to connect and go over that information with any of the students anytime. So thank you again, Wanai. And now I'm going to go ahead and invite our first speaker up on stage for the day. So Vincent James is a current student in our game design boot camp. I'm going to ask him some questions about his current course experience. Welcome, Vincent.
Hey, Tyler.
Hello. So without further ado, I'll just kind of kick this off here and start off with the first question. So Vincent, what motivated you to enroll in the game design boot camp with us?
So I was actually already enrolled in the game development bootcamp prior to starting, and it was around then that I filled out the career survey, and it was flagged by Arki, which was a member of staff at CircuitStream, that like a lot of my interests aligned with the game design bootcamp. So after like a week of back and forth, she convinced me to switch over, and I think it was unknown to me, but I'm basically in the very first game design bootcamp cohort. So it was a new program, and that's why it was a little less known at the time when I was applying. But specifically to, I guess, answer your question, I was looking to switch gears into the gaming industry and wasn't too sure about pursuing a master's program for 2 years in game design.
Mm-hmm.
So the game design bootcamp struck me as the right balance between time commitment and depth, because I knew that I'd be using a lot of my own free time to pursue the kind of specific areas that I was interested in game design, and alongside the bootcamp.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. Perfect. Okay, well, let me hop into the second one here. So how do you find that the bootcamp is preparing you for a career in game design? And second part of that question, I guess, is does it provide practical skills and knowledge that you would think is applicable in the industry today?
I would say, and just for some context here, I guess, my background before this program was within design. I have a degree in industrial design. So for me, it wasn't the biggest shift, I would say, but I still find that the bootcamp has helped me to develop a lot of the soft and hard skills that are valuable, obviously, towards a career in games that I didn't necessarily utilize every day in my career. So I guess specifically the program uses and teaches, well, how to use Unreal, Unreal Engine 5.3. And as a designer, I was going to say that obviously in the AA, AAA, and even in a lot of indie studios, Unreal Engine is kind of the main engine you'd be looking at using over Unity.
Yep.
Over the course of this bootcamp, the Unreal, the courses on, or the classes on Unreal can be a real doozy for anyone who's not really familiar with game engines or 3D programs in general. But what we have covered definitely runs the gamut of the tools that you would be required to use day to day as a game designer. Specifically, like the course has taught myself and the other individuals in my class, like, how to prototype and develop a game on your own, mostly from start to finish, with the knowledge that you're probably handing that prototype off to someone to develop it, like in a very big team environment sense. And I guess the second part of your question, I'd say that most importantly, and I am a bit biased here because of my background, I think that the program's real meat is that, and that what you're basically walking away with is less about Unreal Engine as a tool and more of how to think like a game designer. And I say this because I think the role of a game designer is often misunderstood for people outside the games industry. And I hate to break some hearts here, but the fact is, like, game design isn't about having ideas. And if all you bring to the table in a studio or in a group environment that's developing games, if all you're bringing is ideas, you're actually not going to work in games, which is a very harsh reality. So specifically relating to like what we're learning here, it's that we're learning that, like, obviously game designers, we operate in a very similar field as other designers, and our role in a nutshell is to solve problems for stakeholders. And that means being able to conduct research, do user testing, compile data, analyze, and kind of like sort through everything to find the solutions, and then communicate those solutions and results to the appropriate people. So game design is no different. And a game designer, you'll often need to wear kind of multiple hats on top of that. So like you were saying earlier, like we discuss things and we learn about level design, UX, UI design, and have intricate knowledge of game systems and the kind of the levers that you need to push and pull in order to affect a player's experience. That's kind of game design. It's not just like, oh, how do I make the next big shooter, right? I think there's a really good talk out there by some major game designers who basically say, like, if you're working in games, you don't need to be a game designer to be a game designer. You can have ideas and still contribute as a game designer, but to actually put on the hat of a game designer, you need to look through, like, past all that and know how to, like, do everything else in between. Sorry.
And think like a game designer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you too, in full transparency to the audience, Vincent, I didn't give you a heads up on this question before, but you just kind of touched on it in your answer here. But where would you say, what sort of benefits would you have coming into the course with a little bit of design experience behind you? Just to add to that, because you did mention it before.
Yeah, of course. I can speak towards some of the struggles I'm definitely seeing from some of my cohort in that design is a nebulous field, and there's a lot to learn. You know, like just talking just now about like research and user studies and all that. Like it's a lot to grasp at once. Coming in with that kind of background, like those tools in my pocket, has definitely made a lot of the course outcomes a lot easier to navigate, because at the end of the day, this is a boot camp, right? And I was saying how compared to a 2-year master's, this is over the course of
6
8
months.
months, I think. 6 months, sorry.
Yeah.
And you're going to be asked to do a lot in that time. So there's going to be significant struggles to kind of stay on top of everything. And us being the first cohort of the game design bootcamp, there are definitely some, let's call them issues right now with how deadlines are structured. But the great thing so far for us with our educator, Zane, and Circuit Stream, is a lot of those deadlines are sliding deadlines. We move them around where everyone's kind of learning together on how to like best navigate this course. So there still is that kind of bump that you're going to be pushed hard. And if you're having to learn how to think like a designer at the same time as how to utilize Unreal to mock up a level, like white box something, or Blueprints, which is, if you've never coded, Blueprints is like a lot easier than learning C# or C++, but it still is like, it's its own monster.
Absolutely.
I think coming with a bit of that kind of knowledge, or even just how to navigate like a 3D program like Unreal or a game engine, is already going to like give you a huge leg up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And similar on the development side, you know, the courses we offer are completely beginner friendly, but they are boot camps. So you can get into, you know, pretty intricate concepts over the course of a few months, and it can get pretty intense. So just learning kind of the core fundamentals. But if you do have a bit of experience as a developer with any coding languages before you come in, it's always going to help you a little bit. But the amazing thing about the boot camps too is that we do offer additional assistance, support, and then like you mentioned, Vincent, like we're always, you know, iterating on the tools that we use, but we're also doing that on, especially when we, you know, develop a new boot camp, we're also doing that on the deadlines and on the assignments to make sure that it makes sense and that the students are getting the proper education as they go through. So I love to hear that feedback from you as well. So I'll share the next question here. So would you find it difficult to teach yourself the skills that you have learned in this bootcamp so far if you were to attempt to do them on your own? Leaning into the title of this presentation, if you were to try to do this entirely in YouTube tutorials, do you think you would be as successful? Or would it be as
easy? I mean, I'm going to be honest here. I think so. And it kind of circles back to my last answer. I think that if you are truly pursuing this field without any prior education, in fields like design, you are going to be missing a lot of the critical areas of learning. And I say this honestly, you know, I've been down both of these routes. I started off by like watching tutorials on YouTube, going through Udemy and other kind of education platforms while I was working to kind of do this on the side for about 6 months. And you will kind of get to a point in your solo game development or your pursuit of like completing a portfolio piece where you're going to hit a wall, and that wall is going to be you not knowing what videos to search for next on YouTube or on forums, Reddit, etc. Your next steps won't be so kind of clear anymore, essentially. And I would argue that there are a lot of really great books out there on game design, like tons written on it, really, really old stuff from like the 90s that are still pertinent today. But reading these 500-page tomes, because you're going to need to read multiples of them, they can set you up for great success in your endeavor, in your endeavor to understand how games are made. But I think the structure of a bootcamp helps funnel a lot of those concepts into a more practical learning. If I was, I guess, like condensing all that, my advice here is that you essentially need to do all three. The bootcamp offers you a really great structure in terms of you're going to be asked to do things that you probably wouldn't consider on your own, and you're going to be asked to consider things that you weren't thinking of. The textbooks offer the education and everything else that comes with it. You know, the history of games and game design, and then there's the YouTube tutorials and the Udemy courses for that really specific, focused, like kind of practical learning. And you need to kind of put it all together just to prototype your first game. And even then, it's like your first game cannot be your dream game. That was kind of a harsh reality I think myself and a lot of other people walked in on. It's like, oh, you're not going to be making that game you've been thinking of since you were 10. Like you could start on it, but you should really aim for something small, like the smallest component of that, like something that you can complete within a week or a month. And even then, you're probably not going to you're not going to get it the way you want. And before you even start doing user testing and everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's we had a speaker a couple months back that kind of came on stage and said something very similar. That I imagine when I became a game dev that I was going to create this game and it was going to be just like my favorite game and it was going to be my first build, and then he put on the screen what his first build actually looked like, and everybody just dies laughing because it's like, okay, well that's completely different. It's very, very basic. And then he went a step further and shared the feedback that he got when he shared that game online and let people play it, which was even funnier because the feedback was not the kindest feedback. But the lesson is that your first game, whether you're a developer or designer, is probably not going to look like what you're imagining when you first come out the gate, but it's going to teach you the core concepts kind of as you go through. And once we get on to the development conversation with Leo, I'm going to ask him some questions on that too, and the benefits of kind of building different games to tackle different types of concepts each time. So we'll get into that in a minute here too. But so Vincent, what sort of advice, what sort of advice would you give someone considering enrolling in a game design bootcamp? Are there any skills or knowledge they should focus on before starting? Kind of touched on this a little bit in your previous answers, but maybe I'll let you kind of maybe speak to that for just a moment again there.
Yeah, I definitely said some of this already, so I'm going to try to get through it quickly. Like first, read the textbooks. There's some really great textbooks out there. Do some tutorials, try them out. Like there's a lot that's free on YouTube. And quite often you're going to get to a point with some YouTubers who are like, oh, now they're going to push you to buy their courses. But you can still try out and like follow along and do some of the basic stuff. And like, it's a great way to start learning. I would say specifically with this bootcamp, the game design one, like install and try to learn and navigate and see how to use Unreal Engine, right? I would treat the bootcamp as a series of exercises and lectures, but go into it already with a basic understanding if you can, and by like reading textbooks, watching the tutorials, installing Unreal and messing around with it. I think you'll shave hours from the workload and the stress that this kind of learning environment can induce on you. And then I think a piece of advice I got early on from other people, like mentors, basically in the games industry before I applied here, was that you really want to look for roles that exist in the space of game design that you want, like figure out what they are and consider what you want to specialize in. This is your best way into the industry and into most specialized industries, honestly, or onto any kind of team, is that you just want to be I think what's the term, a T-shaped individual, T-shaped person. You don't want to be a generalist. I think game design is one field where you need to have the general knowledge of everything, and you also need to know how the other departments operate. But you still need to be very T-shaped and focus on those skills during your time in the bootcamp, for example. Make sure that if nothing else, when you produce your game or your prototypes, if nothing else, like if everything's a dumpster fire, make sure the skill that you want to focus on like stands out and is like ideally less on fire than everything else, right? And that's kind of like, that's going to be how you build your portfolio, is you're really going to be focusing on those pieces.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I can see the questions tabs piling up already too here for after, which is good. So two more questions for you here. How do you plan to leverage the skills and experience gained from this bootcamp into your future career in the gaming industry?
I feel like I keep answering these questions ahead of myself.
Okay.
But essentially for me specifically, I plan to work on one long-term project that's kind of already happening right now, that I'll bring forward with a team. And so that is something that the bootcamp prepares you for. I think I touched on it, that you have a capstone project. So you're basically, it's a group project that allows you all to kind of showcase your individual skills and bring it together. Obviously it comes down to the team that you assemble, but that is completely up to you and the people that you choose to work with. And I think you could tackle it. I mean, you could definitely tackle it on your own, but it's going to be a lot, right? So that's probably your best bet at building out a stronger portfolio piece with the team, unless you join game jams and form really great teams in those game jams. But from my experience, a lot of game jam teams kind of splinter away after each jam, and you're out searching again, or you're like hesitant on working on a new project together. And a lot of game jam games just don't make it past the jam. But outside of this, I would say work on really small projects. And like I was saying, like focus on the skills that you really want to showcase, skills that help define that the depth of that T for you as a T individual, right?
Oh.
And I guess I haven't really addressed this yet, but if your goal by taking this, because I've been talking mostly about like in terms of finding a career in the industry, but if your goal is to start a small team or make an indie game on your own with a team, what have you, then I imagine, like you have a dream game that you want to make. And so like my advice doesn't change all that much, but I would say that this program really helps kind of like reset those expectations and actually define the idea that idea that you have into something tangible. Like check if your idea actually has legs and has a market outside of, well, yourself, because you're probably creating the dream game that you want to play for yourself, but you don't know if you've tested it or the idea is tested, right? So even with the best ideas, it could flounder if no one's interested. And I think that this bootcamp does at least help reset some of those expectations and put you in a place to reconsider, your like whether or not the game that you want to make is the one, or maybe you find a different game that you really want to produce, and like you can still pursue that kind of like solo game development route. It's better to do it with other individuals who can like kind of bounce those ideas back and forth with you. It's a form of user testing. At the end of the day, you are testing your ideas against others and hearing the feedback and such.
Absolutely. And with the skills that you're getting, I know you said before that Unreal, you're kind of learning in Unreal, and that's probably a skill set that you might not have had before jumping into the bootcamp. I don't know if you'd worked in Unreal previously or not, but would you say that those skills would be relevant skills that you'd kind of be able to take with you? And maybe beyond that, I know you had said that, it's not so much about focusing on Unreal skills specifically, but understanding kind of the core concepts as a designer. Do you feel that the bootcamp kind of prepares people with those core concepts to kind of move out into the industry?
Yeah, for sure. I guess like that circles back to like, if you could watch 100 YouTube tutorials on how to make your character move, how to make a 2D character, 3D character, give them movement, make them attack, swing swords, shoot guns, bullets, enemy AI, etc. But the majority of these videos, what they won't cover is actual game design, right? You're not going to learn about game loops, how to make something fun. And a game is the core, the focus of every game is to be fun. So essentially, you're looking at if you were choosing to just pursue YouTube and other kind of like areas like this, you are learning those like really hard skills that are transferable. If you want to jump from Unreal to Unity, you have some basic understanding of like how to build those characters and the levels and such. But where this program, this bootcamp, and like say you got a bachelor's or a master's in game design, where those are really gonna like set you apart from a hobbyist game maker versus like someone who's trying to break into an industry, is like the thought process of like a game designer or a designer in general.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what we try and focus on in the boot camps for sure. So that's perfect. And then one more question for you here, Vincent. What are your future goals in the game industry? I know you kind of touched on the game development that you're doing right now or design. And how do you see the boot camp kind of contributing to your long-term success with that?
Yeah, and okay, so this is I'm a bit of a pessimist. On my good days, I'm an optimist. So I guess right now I'm having a decent day. I would say I'm looking to join a AAA developer, definitely not in the mobile space if I can help it, and crossing my fingers that I can skip the years you'd be expected to put into at a small developer or an indie studio to kind of build up your experience. And that's basically because I'm hoping to leverage my previous career as a product design lead. Yep. So UX, UI is like, that's the area that I'm focusing in terms of games. Aiming probably at Ubisoft in Montreal. I live across from them right now, or if possible back at EA in BC. That's where I grew up. This specifically, I guess, like
we've got some connections at both, so just make sure you talk to us when you're getting close to graduation.
I've got some connections too, so let's just pool them all together, and maybe it's like it's a bonus stat thing, and you just build up high enough and you just get a job. So I guess to circle back to your question, this bootcamp is definitely contributing towards helping me recontextualize a lot of the skills that I've had prior to the bootcamp. And I can see how for someone who doesn't already come from a design background, it's obviously teaching you a lot, and those skills are pertinent to pursuing a career in this field. And I guess the other side of this that is I feel is impossible to not kind of address is that if you're hoping that this bootcamp will guarantee you a job in the industry, I mean, I do hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the games industry literally let go of a third of their global staff in the last year, and there are a lot of skilled individuals in their own right in the market right now, and so the market's very, very saturated. So I essentially see the bootcamp and what I'm learning here as another tool in my pocket, but it alone isn't going to net me a job or help me make my own game to sell on Steam. Specifically, like if you're in game design, you aren't going to learn the coding required to build a game fully, but you will learn blueprints really well, and you could technically produce a game purely in blueprints and put that on Steam. It's just there's going to come a point where there's some really difficult stuff that might be easier to do by having C++ knowledge. And so kind of circling back, the old adage, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so my thought here is it absolutely applies. And I don't want to fool anyone to thinking that this bootcamp alone is going to, nab you a role anywhere noteworthy in games. You definitely deflect the bootcamp and your pursuit of, the YouTube tutorials that very specifically focus on the skills that you want to learn, the areas you want to push, whether that's like level design, system design, UX, etc. And you kind of need to do it all. I think if I had to sum it up, it would be, earlier I was saying I wanted the 2 years master's in game design, but I want to do it in 6 months. You need to do that. Basically, you need to condense that learning, and you need to make a game afterwards. Probably you can't make the game in the 6 months because you're doing all the learning, but you can at least start it. If you can do all that, then I definitely think you're setting yourself up for huge success in terms of a career in games. But if you're going to go through the 6 months and walk out of it and just be like, okay, I have some pieces from the bootcamp, I want that job now, like you have to have some really good connections, I think, at that point to really just get a seat at the table.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I mean, what you said earlier too, coming from a background with some experience is kind of key for being qualified for more senior roles right out the gate from a boot camp like this. Whereas, if you came from a background in, financial banking, say, and then you suddenly just wanted to be a game designer, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer. And, you're going to need some experience. You're going to need some mentors. You're going to need to do some tutorials. You're going to need to go through boot camps. You're going to need some time to develop your skill set to be qualified for those senior level roles. This would be the same with any industry, really. I mean, you have to. So coming out the gate, we have students that get hired into indie studios. We have students that get contract positions right away when they come out. We do have some students that move into more senior level companies or roles, but those ones are a bit more rare, and they're usually combined with the previous experience. Otherwise, it usually, a student would go through the boot camp and then they would work on their skills for a year or so. And then, at that point, a year or two later, they're probably going to be much more qualified for senior level roles and things along those lines. So this is great. And so what I'll say is I can see there's a bunch of questions in the questions tab. We are going to circle back and do some Q&A at the very end of the presentation here. So if anybody has any further questions for Vincent, if you think of it while we're going through here, just pop them into the questions tab, and I'm going to invite Vincent to come back up at the end here when we do some Q&A. But for now, I'll say thank you so much, Vincent. I'm going to go ahead and invite the next speaker up on stage in a moment here as well.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Perfect. All right, so let's make this bigger. It always freaks me out when my face goes big on the screen. So without further ado, I'll do the next speaker here. So Leo works at Unity. He's a game development bootcamp grad. I'm going to go ahead and ask him some similar style questions that we just went through with Vincent, but it'll be a little bit more on the game development experience. So I'm going to make your screen big here, Leo. Don't be freaked. There we go. I always surprise people when I do that. So hello, Leo.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Tyler, again. Thanks, everyone, for being here, taking the first step towards hopefully changing your career path. I do want to make one thing clear really quick. I don't want to have any questions regarding this, I don't work at Unity. I work with Unity every day. So yeah, just I use Unity every day of my life, but I do not work there yet. We'll see, maybe to come in the future. But just wanted to get that out of the way.
Sorry, I meant to say with, not at. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It just makes a big difference.
Yeah, of course. And the other thing too, Leo was mentioning that there was potentially, I just always give everyone a heads up, there might be a potential issue with your video. If anything happens with the video, nobody panic. We'll be back up on stage shortly thereafter. We'll get it fixed, but just in case something was to come up there. But so yeah, without further ado, Leo, I'll go ahead and I'll start by asking you some questions here, similar style. So how would you describe your overall experience in the game development bootcamp, and did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, I think the overall experience was fantastic. In general, I think it met my expectations in some ways, and it exceeded it in other ways. I think the ways that it met my expectation was the technical portion, like all the research I had done on CircuitStream ahead of time, and the talks that I had with like the people that were responsible for enrolling back when I did the boot camp. All kind of set those expectations that, you know, like you said, it was going to be project based, that we were going to learn a bunch of different concepts, that it was going to be heavy, and all of that did happen. And the part that exceeded expectation was kind of what one I touched on, which was the career side. I think I got some really great advice. Like going into the bootcamp, I had no game development resume, I had no portfolio, and I had no projects. So I basically, you know, told my career advisors, I said, how do I create a resume with my previous skills of acting and Twitch streaming? You know, like there is nothing to do there. And they found a way. And, you know, like I have a job now with Unity. And it's because of that part of the bootcamp. That was great. Yeah. So my overall experience was fantastic. The people I met were great. I made a friend who we keep in touch like literally every day still, kind of what she's doing, what I'm doing. She's more art focused and development focused, but we met in the development boot camp, and we will for sure be working together in the future as well. So connections were great, and the career side definitely exceeded my expectations.
Amazing. I was going to say, don't give too much on the connections. I have a question I think about that coming up. So I think I do. How did the bootcamp prepare you for the practical aspects of game development, such as working with specific tools, languages, and technologies?
Yeah, so I think a little circling back, I know there's a question, but circling back to the title of the presentation, right? I had done a couple of C# tutorials, but wasn't really that familiar with it. So that, you know, you mentioned the tools and like languages, right? So that was completely, or, you know, 90% new to me, 95% new to me. And I consider myself a C# expert now. You know, I'm certified with Unity. I had no experience using Git or GitHub, and now I'm completely familiar, completely comfortable with it. So I think, you know, the bootcamp was able to, when I had to do my full-time job interview, I answered all of the questions. This is a quote from my interview. It was, "You've done better than some people with 5 years of experience." And I had 0 at that point. Like, that's what I was told during the interview. So, you know, I'm going to a little bit echo what Vincent said before, where it's not like you attend, you don't go to classes, you don't do any of the assignments, but you pay for it, therefore you have a job. That's not how that works, right? Like, there is a lot of work that has to be done in the 6 months, because it's kind of 2 years in 6 months, right? Like, you're going to get done faster, but you also have to do more work during that time. It's just the reality. But, you know, learning all of those tools definitely prepared me for what I have going on now.
Amazing. Okay, and then were there opportunities for here it is. Were there opportunities for networking, connecting with professionals in the game development industry during the boot camp? And do you still have these connections? How are they benefiting you now, or how do they benefit you during the course?
Yeah, 100%. So I think, you know, like what makes CircuitStream the biggest difference, and I'll touch into it later, are the two things. First, the community that has been built within the program. So we have a giant Discord with literally like everyone that you can think of. And that's how you can make connections, right? Like, hey, I need, you know, someone for UI. I'm making a game right now, and I needed somebody to do the UI for my game because I'm not an artist. And I'm working with someone that was in the Circuit Stream Discord, right? And so he's going to be doing the UI for my game, and it should be releasing hopefully beginning or middle of March. And we have, I don't know how many thousands of members, right? And I think the biggest networking opportunity is Pitch Day. I think Pitch Day was probably, I always say this in these presentations because it's the biggest truth I have, is that during Pitch Day, or Pitch Day was the biggest reason why I signed up in the first place for the bootcamp, because though we can't promise that you're going to have a job just because you went through it 6 months, what Circuit Stream does promise is an opportunity for you to show off what you're capable of, right? And not a lot of places do that, right? YouTube tutorials definitely don't do that. So the fact that there is even a window at the end of the 6 months was a huge, was a game changer for me, because I knew if I worked hard enough for 6 months and I had something impressive to show for, I would at least turn some heads, even if they weren't looking for, people, which is a possibility, even if they weren't, necessarily hiring somebody. I knew that if somebody in there was, I needed to be the best one out of the crew so that, I would have the opportunity to be called. And that did happen. My full-time job opportunity came because of Pitch Day, immediately after, in fact. And then I also got 2 freelance work, contracts because of Pitch Day, directly after Pitch Day. So it's possible, right? The connections that you make are great. And the people that you meet know some people, and they know people. You never know who knows who. So that kind of community that you build and ability to meet new people was a huge difference maker for me.
Well, and game developers and designers, the community is so supportive.
Yes,
at least
100%.
That's what I find. People just get excited talking to each other about it. They get excited, at the prospect of working together sometimes on different types of projects. Like you said, a UX designer, you weren't doing that yourself, but somebody else who has that skill was probably excited to collaborate with you and get involved in that project.
Yeah.
Just through the Discord community. So amazing. So next question is would you say the secret to learning how to develop games faster is to practice and build many different types of games and try and tackle new concepts when you do each one?
Yeah, I think practice is the biggest thing, right? So going back to what I said a little bit earlier, there are people that sign up, and I know because I was an instructor for the last cohort, so I can tell you from this side as well. There are people that sign up for the bootcamp, and just because their name is on the class list, they think that they're going to be experts by the end. And that is absolutely not true, right? You've gone through school before, what subjects you were good and bad at, and which subjects you applied more of your time to, right? There's probably a correlation there. There is to me, I know that for sure. So the more work you put in, the better you're going to do. And that does come with practice. So you mentioned projects, right? So smaller projects kind of to apply the things that you learn. But not anymore because I changed computers, but before, during the bootcamp, if you looked through my computer, my Unity hub, which is basically where all of your projects are listed, if people are unfamiliar with Unity, was just 100 of unfinished projects. And that's because after class, whatever we learned that day, I would just start a new project and just try to apply it by myself, right? I would definitely need some help. I would definitely need to rewatch class and look up documentation and, whatever it may be, rewatch the classes, but or tutorials at that point. But I knew what I was looking for, which is the big difference here. I think you're kind of lost if you're by yourself, whereas with this, there's structure. So you're able to kind of learn a new concept, apply it, right? Make sure you understand it. Even if you can't do it all by yourself, there are concepts that I couldn't apply out of memory today, but I can explain to you what they are. And so when I go online, I know what to look for, right? So that's a big difference. I do want to say real quick again for everyone that's asking questions, I don't want to miss any of your questions. So please put them in the questions tab, just because it gets more organized that way. And we're going to go through each one during the Q&A. So I just want to touch on that real quick. But please put them there because I want to answer them.
And the one that's in there right now is just asking for your social media and stuff too. So I can touch on that at the end of the presentation. I'll get Leo to share that stuff in the chat there, or when you're done chatting there, you can do that.
Yeah.
No problem, Bettina. Okay, so the next question here is, considering your experience, what advice would you give to individuals who are interested in starting their journey in game development or considering taking a bootcamp like this one?
I think you skipped one.
Oh, did I? Well, let's.
Yeah, the important one.
Oh, is
The
it? Here,
title.
let me go back. Let me go back a question. Sorry, everybody. Why? Oh, yeah, yeah. Why would you suggest that a structured bootcamp is more successful than attempting to teach yourself game development skills online using YouTube tutorials? Literally the title of the presentation. I can't believe I skipped that one. Thanks, Leo.
Of course. Yeah, so a huge difference, right? And this is coming from someone who was doing I was doing YouTube tutorials before I started on Circuit Stream. And although it was good so that it didn't look completely new, by the time I started the boot camp, it's what I said earlier. I was lost, right? Do I learn how to make a character move? Do I learn the command pattern? Do I learn game state machines, or do I learn just how to like make my character jump? Right? You never know if something is easy or hard, and so you kind of waste time going through tutorials because you might get to something that's a little bit more intermediate, advanced that you're not necessarily familiar with, and then that might be a little defeating because then you're like, oh, this is too hard. I don't want to touch on this anymore. Like, where do I even go from here? So when you are starting a bootcamp that is beginner friendly, you are sure to start at the beginning, right? You are sure to start with the basics. And again, it's going to move fast, right? We get to multiplayer games by the end. We get to networking, which is complicated, but we start at the beginning. So as long as you keep up with the class, you answer questions or ask questions when you have them, you practice when you can, you're going to keep up and you're going to grow with the structure of the course, which is something that obviously YouTube doesn't have. And then the other thing as well is, you watch a YouTube tutorial. If you miss something, the best thing you can do is watch something that you've already seen. Whereas when you're doing the bootcamp and when you're doing something with a live instructor, you miss something, you can ask a question and ask like, hey, can you show me this again in a different way? Like I remember this last cohort, we were working with algorithms. And I think a couple of my students are here actually today, and they might be able to speak to this, but we had to do the merge sort algorithm, and it's kind of difficult. There is recursion involved, and it was very confusing. So because I'm a live instructor, I'm a person, I promise. This is not AI. I took my time to build a simulation in Unity, or a visual in Unity, I'm going to call, that helped them understand the merge sort algorithm better versus, on YouTube, you would have to just look for another one and hope that they do a better job than the previous one. So I think the structure and the fact that that's what an AI would say. No, it isn't. I'm kidding. But yeah, so the structure and the fact that you're able to interact and schedule one-on-ones and go to office hours and ask questions during class. I open my Discord to my students at all times. I've gotten questions, at 10 p.m. Do I love it? Sometimes no. Sometimes I'm busy, but I always answer. It might be the next day, but it's always answered. And that's just not something you get on YouTube.
Yeah. And I should have said this near the beginning too. Like I don't mean, especially with the title of this event, I don't mean to talk negatively, I guess, about YouTube tutorials and stuff, because there's so much amazing content that's out there. And at Circuit Stream, we actually suggest a lot of YouTube tutorials to help supplement people's careers. So I think that's the thing, it's just, you're going to miss the base core concepts and the base structure if you're trying to do it entirely on your own, or it's just going to take you a whole lot more time to get there, because you're probably going to end up going down a bunch of different avenues that you don't need to go down and learning things that you need to unlearn versus the areas that you do need to learn. And so just I should have said that at the beginning too. We do enjoy YouTube tutorials as well.
I
We
want
just
to
not
touch
as
on
the
that
main.
real quick because I think you used the perfect word, which is supplement, and it's completely complementary. I think YouTube is the perfect complement to the bootcamp, because when I didn't understand a concept, I would go to YouTube, right? Maybe somebody, like I go to my instructor and then I go to YouTube, and maybe I would ask or I would just hear it explained in a different way. But now I had seen it before, so it wasn't new, right? So now your brain is working with connecting the dots instead of trying to draw the dots in the first place, right? So I think YouTube tutorials are completely valid, and they were super valuable to me. If we connect, I have some tips to you later as well about some good channels to go to, but they're definitely not the only thing you need. If your thing is for the next year, I'm going to watch YouTube tutorials and I'm going to learn all of Unity, you might be a genius, so this might be different, but it probably won't land you a job after a year. It probably won't, because you're missing the structure, because you're missing the opportunity to work with people, which is something that the gaming industry really values. You're missing like that teamwork, version control, which you might never learn how to use if you're just working with, or you might never think to use if you're just learning with YouTube or using YouTube. So it's the perfect complement, because CircuitStream does a really good job at showing you what's available out there and obviously teaching you the concept. But like Vincent said, it's not 2 years. So we can't spend 5 weeks in a concept, right? We spend 1, maybe 2 days. And then you have to go and complement that learning portion, or that portion of your learning experience with YouTube, with rewatching the class, with asking questions, so on and so forth.
Totally. Yeah, I think what you said too, that, similar, you kind of hit the nail on the head, is just learning the core concepts. Like if you try and teach yourself anything, I have a great example. I tried to teach myself how to play some music on a keyboard years ago, and I actually learned how to play 2 or 3 songs, and I could play the songs fully. I knew exactly what I was doing. But if you asked me to read sheet music or know exactly what I was doing, I had no idea.
That's a great example.
And now it's years later, and I realized I learned how to mimic a skill versus actually understand the core concepts of it. Because if you ask me now to pull out a keyboard and play that song that I knew years ago, I still wouldn't even know, because I never understood the core concepts. I never understood how to read sheet music. So it's I was using that example the other day in a conversation. And I was like, I feel like that applies here. So,
and final thing, Marlon, just to answer your question real quick. When we mention YouTube tutorials, I think we're talking about tutorials in general. So Udemy, whatever else you would pay for, like all of that is supplementary, I think, to a structured course.
Absolutely. All right, now I'll jump back to the question I asked you already before. Considering your experience, what advice would you give to individuals who are interested in starting their journey in game development or considering enrolling in a bootcamp like this one?
I mean, honestly, to me, based on what I like, the experience that I had in the bootcamp, it becomes just a financial thing for me. What I'm telling you is, like, if you have the financial means, and I know Tyler will discuss this in a little bit, do it. If you're truly passionate about game development and about changing your career path or starting a new career path, do it. If not for the technical skills that you might be like, no, YouTube has got me. Udemy has got me. For the other portion, for the career side, which is going to need a lot of focus, right? For the networking portion, which is going to need a lot of focus, and trust me, you need to know people in the industry to get jobs. And again, which is why I love Pitch Day so much, is because I didn't know people, so I didn't know who to reach out to be like, hey, look at my project, right? Would I be a good fit for you? But CircuitStream was like, don't worry, we're going to bring 30 people here, and they're going to see if you're a good fit for them, right? Like, they kind of have to sit through those 2 hours, and you have your time to present your best self. And so that my biggest advice, I think, would be try to prep yourself a little bit so that things are not completely new. So, like, try to understand the very basics of C#, I would say, and just familiarize yourself with the layout of Unity, just so that when you go in, it's not like, oh my God, what is a game engine, right? What is this that I'm looking at? So try to familiarize, but I'm serious, it doesn't have to be that much. We go from the early stages of learning game development with Unity.
Absolutely. And yeah, on Leo's pitch day, I'm remembering back to it too. The people in the crowd, the companies that were there viewing, I remember them messaging me and asking me, who's this guy? And with a few people in the class, because I believe there was actually a few contracts that went out that day. But Leo's presentation was awesome that day too. So just a little shout out to you. And then how does the bootcamp support your transition from education into the workforce? Does it provide resources or guidance on job placement, industry connections? We've talked about this several times. I'll just let you kind of say again, probably pitch day and connections, right?
Yeah, I think pitch day is the biggest thing. It's usually what I try to pitch, no pun intended, when I'm here. It's because I do think that it's one of the most valuable things that CircuitStream offers, because when you're just starting and you're completely new, you don't know who's going to see your work. You might make a great game and post it, and it just never appears anywhere on Steam, right? And you might just be completely talented, but your resume doesn't say it because you don't have the experience, right? So who's going to trust your resume? Like, I can put in my resume like completely fluent in C# and Unity, and then under my like experience, like work experience or project experience, I have nothing, right? Who's going to trust that? Whereas during pitch day, I had 10 minutes to present myself, and I made a game that I think was impressive for the time, like the 6 months that we had. So I presented it proudly, and luckily it worked out.
Absolutely. All right, one more question for you here before I move into the next section, and then we can get into the Q&A and tackle some of these questions here. Are there any additional is there any additional advice or insights that you'd like to share with newcomers who are passionate about pursuing a career in game development, just in general?
Yeah, I think we'll cover this more in the Q&A because I saw a couple of questions, but some people were asking like, why Unity, or is Godot a good engine? Is some Source a good engine? I think I just want to say real quick that what you're going to learn in the game development bootcamp are concepts taught through Unity, right? So you're going to learn it in Unity, but they are completely applicable to all other engines, right? You're going to have to get familiar with the engines if you want to use it, but the concepts of like what are patterns, right? What are game design patterns, right? So like the strategy pattern, the command pattern, game state machine, right? The singleton pattern, like what are all of those things? It doesn't matter whether you know them in Unity or whether you know them in Unreal. You're going to have to learn C++ or C#. Sure, that's different, but you're going to learn what they are. And that's so much more valuable. I'm telling you, I also thought the other way. I also thought it wasn't before I did this. But now that I know them, I know what to look for. And I know how to understand code better, just structure of code based on, everything that I learned during the process. It also helped that I became an instructor, because then I was able to kind of test myself and teach everything that I had learned. Even though the what's it called? The syllabus was quite different. The curriculum was quite different from when I took it to when I taught it, which worked out in my favor even more, because then I had to, kind of I had to make sure I knew everything and had to teach everything. But the curriculum is better now than it was when I took my when I did my cohort. So any advice? Just prep yourself a little bit and dig in. Make sure you work. If you're going to do it, make sure you work during the 6 months, right? Take 6 months to hustle. Take 6 months to, like put your head down and work. Like I stayed on this computer until 4 a.m. many times to finish my personal game. It wasn't to finish any assignments, right? But I knew that I had to put out something impressive at the end. So I stayed here late many times.
That's the best advice, honestly. Like short-term hard work for long-term gain
Yes.
is the best thing, the best advice out there. And that's kind of mirrored from both you and Vincent there. And we would say the same thing through Circuit Stream. So we'll say thank you so much, Leo. I'm going to invite you back up here in just a couple minutes. I promise everyone I'll be fast. I'm just going to share a little bit more information here, and then we'll invite Leo back up on stage. So let's make this guy big again. So I'm going to share a little bit on the bootcamp, do a quick kind of recap, and then I'll share some information on the schedules and the tuition, as Leo mentioned there as well. So both of the gaming bootcamps that we offer are 30 weeks long, and they consist of 5 hours of live online instruction per week via video conference and roughly 10 hours of independent study. Great thing to note is that these live sessions are all recorded and sent to the students. So if you do miss any of your classes, you are able to go back and review the class materials anytime. Even if you didn't miss it, if you just want to kind of go back through as you're working on projects and re-review the concepts that you learned in the class, you can go back to the videos anytime, which is amazing. We also offer daily office hours where students can drop in and ask any questions they have. I know Leo was mentioning that. He's always available. He may not always want to answer in the late messages that come through, but as an instructor with Circuit Stream, he makes himself available for questions anytime. So there are scheduled hours, so we wouldn't expect our instructors to be available 24/7, but there obviously are some exceptions to that rule, and Leo's amazing. So so the office hours, and a great perk is that the students get a lot lifetime access to the recordings, materials, the office hours, and also the Discord. So we're mentioning previously obviously that we have the Discord community, thousands of people strong, and that's a place that you can find opportunities even once you've completed the course. If you're working on something and you need a UX designer, for example, like Leo said, you can go through the community and find somebody there most likely. So. And so there's many amazing benefits from the gaming boot camps. If all they did was provide opportunities in the gaming industry, in my opinion, they would be worth it. But I'm just going to kind of quickly share some of the additional benefits to the boot camp. I know we covered most of these topics in the Q&A that we just did, but I'll just kind of highlight them there. So the boot camps come with 30 weeks of instructor-led classes, which include 12 technical and career labs, access to the instructor office hours, and then 10 career sessions, one-on-one sessions, which is amazing. The boot camps provide students with foundational game development and game design core concepts. We just kind of went over that and the benefits of learning the core concepts versus just kind of learning to mimic something using a one-off YouTube tutorial, like me trying to teach myself how to play the piano. The boot camps allow students to create and develop comprehensive portfolios using their own ideas. So similar to what Leo said, he had no portfolio going in. He did have a portfolio when he came out. He worked on his own projects and he had something ready to present. Not only at pitch day, but outside of that, just for any opportunities in the gaming community, he had a comprehensive portfolio ready to go. And students really receive lifetime access to the network. I mentioned that above, but I'll say that here too. And as a part of our boot camps, we are going to be offering exclusive access to private AMA sessions. These are just for the students, and these are going to be with professionals from within the gaming industry. Some of these folks are people that we've had speak at previous sessions, and other ones will be completely new speakers that we have not engaged with yet. But confirmed for 2024 so far, we have guests joining us from amazing companies, including Unity, Keyword Studios, Game Breaking Studios. We also have a bunch on deck from Riot Games, Ubisoft, Electronic Arts. So there's going to be some amazing speakers that we have lined up for this year, next year, kind of just moving forward. These sessions are just available for our students, and they're AMA sessions meant for you to go in and basically sponge as much information as you can and use them kind of as mentor sessions with experts that are currently working in the industry. So just some exciting stuff that we have coming up. Quick reminder, these are the key outcomes from the game development bootcamp, just the skills, the coding, game architecture, so on and so forth. And similarly, these are the key outcomes from the game design bootcamp. And for the tuition, so the full price of the gaming boot camps is $14,995. Of course, students are able to pay for the courses up front if they would like, or they can utilize the payment plan options. We have options available for 6, 12, and 24-month periods. So if anybody has any questions about this, I guess I should share the dates too here. So they do run every 5 to 6 months. The upcoming cohort that we have is running from February 13th through to September 5th. There'll be another one coming up a couple months after February. So if you were interested in the February cohorts or the spring cohorts, just let us know. The best way to get a hold of us. Oh, I'm going to share that in a second, actually. I'll share the contact information in a second, but this was at the beginning of the session, I mentioned that we would have a bit of a special offer. So Indica is his full name, but Indy, and I'm not even going to pretend, I've never attempted to pronounce his last name properly. But he is our instructor manager at Circuit Stream, and he just recently released an amazing book. The book itself is heavier focus on augmented reality, but it's mostly touching on Unity development. So big overlap with our XR courses and also the game development course. And just because it's our instructor manager who did put this book together and just recently released it, for anybody who purchases the course today, we're just going to do it as a little extra gift for you and send out the book that he just released. So just a little extra added on bonus for folks here. And then this is what I was saying before, for anybody who's looking to apply for the boot camps, these are the main links here for the different schools, and then also through Circuit Stream. Again, this presentation is recorded and will be sent out to everybody. So I know you can't click on the links while I'm sharing here, but feel free to write them down, take a picture on your phone. You can go straight through to these websites. Or if you have any questions, just in general about the courses, about upcoming start dates, anything that I didn't mention in today's presentation, feel free to go ahead and reach out to admissions@circuitstream.com. If you just reach out to that email, we can connect you to the right people, whether it's one of our school partners or directly through Circuit Stream if you have questions there. So that's that. I am going to stop chatting here and stop sharing information, and I'm going to close this screen, and I'm going to invite the speakers back up, and we are going to attempt to go through some of these questions here. So hello, welcome back. Hello. So let me see here. Let me go over to the questions tab and do my best. I don't know if we've answered any in the meantime, but so it'll mark the questions not answered if I don't put them up. So I'm just going to quickly do this, even though I answered this before. Today's session is still running. It was meant to be a 60 to 90-minute session, and we're kind of right in between those two time periods right now. So that's for the session. All right, here we go. So are the differences between design and development spoken about during this presentation applicable in the XR industry? Yes. So we actually offer 2 10-week courses as well that are XR focused. So while we have the 6-month game development bootcamp and the 6-month game design bootcamp, we have a 10-week XR development course and a 10-week interaction design and prototyping for XR course. Both of those are completely different skill sets, very similar. Like if you're taking the interaction course in design, probably not going to be touching any coding. You're not going to be learning any C# concepts or anything. Whereas if you take the XR course, you would be developing within Unity as well. So probably the main differences there.
I want to add one thing real quick. Somebody
please,
asked
yeah.
If we learn XR in the game development bootcamp. I believe currently there is one lab that we do. So there are labs every other week during the boot camp where you get to practice a couple different skills or just, go deeper into the skills that you were taught during lectures. There is one XR lab, but that is not the focus of the game development bootcamp necessarily. Everything that you're going to learn is applicable to XR. It's just not the focus. The focus is in the 10-week courses.
Absolutely, and we've had some students take both as well. I know we've had some students. Usually, they start, or a lot of students have started on the XR side and learn some of the Unity development skills, and then moved into the full Unity game development bootcamp. So
that was me.
Oh, perfect! Yay, we have one.
Yeah. I went through the XR 10-week program first.
Amazing, and the design one or the design? Yeah, perfect.
I actually did the design one, and then I was offered the XR one. So this is my 3rd course with Circuit Stream.
Amazing. Yeah, it's good. I didn't realize I had an example sitting right in front of me when I said that. So thank you, Vincent. All right, so let's put this one up. Can you speak about the focus on Unity within development and the focus on Unreal within design? And the reasons for these different choices, if any technical and or creative advantages for both. I can just quick topically before you guys jump in, just say that Unreal and Unity are kind of the top players in the industry in terms of development right now. At Circuit Stream, we see a massive advantage to kind of preparing our students with the skills in these 2 different programs. But as Leo said too earlier, especially with something like development, you can apply the concepts that you learn using Unity in different types of development platforms. It's kind of like using like photo editing software. You can use Photoshop and you can use Figma and you can use different types of things to achieve the same outcome. But it's kind of the skill sets that you have to learn how to do. So that's my part. I'll let you guys jump in if you had. Looks like you're nodding there, Leo.
Oh, I was just saying. I was just thinking that I think the biggest reason why Unity is the focus for development versus Unreal, for example, is C# is a lot easier than C++. Is a lot more user friendly, beginner friendly, everything that you can think of. So that's why we focus on Unity, and it's still a very powerful game engine. I know Tyler showed some examples of games in the beginning, and Vincent could speak more to why design within Unreal.
Yeah, I think from my experience, we are focusing on Unreal because it is the pipeline that you'd be expected to know if you were to pursue a role in the industry as a game designer. As a game designer on your own, if you were trying to make your solo game, you couldn't just be a game designer. You'd also need to know how to code, right? So I think there's this expectation that the game design bootcamp does help push you towards a career. And as such, as designers, our role is to communicate across teams. So it's not necessary for you to have that coding, especially C++, in your back pocket, but it helps to know Unreal. And we utilize Blueprints, which is the visual coding language in Unreal. So we can essentially, or we do mock-up prototypes that utilize C++, but we don't necessarily code it ourselves, right? We're just connecting, pulling the right nodes, knowing how to connect things to make the functions that we need. And that's kind of more realistically the kind of day-to-day that you'd have as a game designer on a very general level.
Amazing. Well, hopefully that we all answered the question there for you. If you have any more questions about the platforms that we use there, feel free to let us know. Let's see here. So are there any reasons why one might choose to develop using the Source engine over the Unreal engine?
I'm not familiar enough. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think Source is kind of what Counter-Strike is developed on, Half-Life 2, and so on and so forth. I would not. I wouldn't think that the industry really wants you to know Source over Unreal nowadays. I think it would be kind of where I'd be going. Vincent touched on this, like what you're expected to know, and if you go through jobs on LinkedIn currently, it's do you know some sort of 3D game engine, and then they put in parentheses Unreal, Unity, etc. So Source falls under the etc. because it's probably one of the less important ones. It's still a skill that you might want to have, and I don't want to say it's not important, but in the umbrella of things that are being searched for, it's probably not high in priority, I'll say.
And I feel like
I would only add oh, sorry, Tyler.
I was just going to say, because Unreal and Unity are the top, there's probably been a whole lot of time put into developing how user-friendly they are versus other platforms as well. But sorry, go ahead, Vincent.
I was going to say, I would only see the Source engine being a relevant engine to learn if you want to get a job at Steam. And even then, you need to know Unreal or Unity or both. And on top of that, the Source engine really. But I can't imagine, like when I looked at postings at Steam, they never mentioned that you need to know Source engine. They were always looking for Unreal because they'll teach you as part of their onboarding the Source engine, or they'll bridge, like they've got their own on-ramp for new people there. So Source engine on its own is definitely not going to be a big asset to you on your portfolio, I don't think, unless you're like doing really, really spectacular work in there. But you're still going to fall under a niche of like the places that would actually utilize that engine.
Totally.
And a lot of people have a lot of places have their own engine as well. So the skills that you're going to learn with Unreal or Unity will most definitely be applicable to those.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to jump into the next one. What is Twinery related to Twine for scenario development?
Twinery is, and we actually do touch on this in the game design bootcamp. It's essentially it's a tool for making visual novel games or visual novels. So that is something that if you're interested in that space, you will learn about Twinery. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce it, among some other tools, but it's more of and I'm completely blanking on the term. I think it's one of the workshops that we have every 2 weeks. We either have a workshop on as one of our classes, or as an extra class, or a career class. So one of our workshop classes was looking at Twinery and a couple of other game design tools that can all basically produce games in their own right, but like on a much smaller scale. But yeah, Twinery it's useful if you are looking into breaking into that space of like narrative focused work, or it's a great prototyping tool for narrative work.
Amazing. I had no idea. So thank you very much, Vincent. I am not an instructor. All right. So let's pull this one up here. I'm a seasoned project manager with a very strong technical background. However, I'm thinking on switching to video games. Is there an age limit to enter the industry? No. I can actually share on something with this. I didn't include it in today's presentation. Perhaps I should have, but I just found a really interesting stat, and I think it said that over 60%, please don't quote me on this, I'd want to find the actual numbers, but it was roughly about over 60% of the game developers currently working in the United States are over the age of 40, which is the majority of game developers working in the country right now, and game development in the US is massive. So that should give you a little bit of confidence. I know there's always, new young developers and designers coming in the gate, and a lot of those roles would be comprised of people who are in senior roles who may have been in the industry for quite a while as well. But we have tons of people, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. We have people coming to us from all ages. And the reality is, as I go to conferences, I went to GDC last year, for example, massive game development conference in San Francisco. And I met game developers who were new to the industry from all different ages. I saw people there who were, 19 years old up to 60 years old, and everyone was just there excited, kind of learning the same sort of thing. So from my experience, no, there's no limitations there, but maybe I'll let you guys weigh in on that as well.
Oh, I don't think there's any limitation at all. I think as long as you're comfortable with, a computer, and that's all it takes. Like the other skills you can kind of learn during the process. Yeah, I don't think there's any limitation.
Yeah, same thoughts. And honestly, I think the only, and this is kind of like something I've heard from a mentor in the games industry is, and this is more not so much about your age, but like the project management, because like I had a similar background of project management, design lead. It's that kind of experience helps, but you kind of need to reset some of your expectations when getting into the games industry. Like you may have had a senior role, but that doesn't guarantee, like in your previous industry, but that doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to land the same role when you break into games. You might have to start on a lower rung, which is expected. An interesting piece of advice, or not piece of advice, but a tip that I've heard here, and please don't quote me because this is through another developer, is that the games industry actually is often shorthanded on project managers. So it's actually one of the easier roles to break into if you have a very strong project management background. So you might want to start there if you're interested in game development or game design, and then work your way into the other departments. Bit of a tangent there.
This was not planned at all, but we actually offer boot camps in product management as well. So if anybody has any questions about that, just let us know. just a quick shout out. I mean, I have to. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions here. Let's try and get through these, I guess, as quickly. Maybe what we'll try and do is get one of us to answer each of these versus all three of us, just because I feel like we'll probably be going for a little while. I just closed this one off. I didn't mean to, but I want to know how recent advancements in AI will affect the gaming industry. Does anybody have any thoughts on AI?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are worried that like AI will, take our jobs. It might happen, but it's nowhere soon, I don't think. I think it's how can you work with it. And so, there's some times where I might be coding something and I need help just thinking of how to code like a concept that I'm thinking of, and I'll just throw it on ChatGPT. And sometimes it's completely useless and I have to go somewhere else, right? So it's kind of understanding how to work with it to improve your efficiency. But if you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, code the next Fortnite, like it's going to blow up. So it's not a substitution so far, it's a complement.
I agree with that. Perfect. Okay, and then how in-depth does the game design course cover blueprints? I'll let you touch on that one, Vincent.
Yeah, you're going to get a very strong understanding of blueprints, but it's similar in the sense of what I was talking about earlier, that you're really gonna have to apply yourself. I can tell you, like from my own experience, I struggled to learn a lot of the more difficult concepts of blueprints, and then that's when I started going like, okay, now I know what to look for in my YouTube tutorials or my Udemy search or courses. And on top of that, I was started to like make use of my one-on-ones I had with my instructor Zane. And I was just like pitching like, hey, I need to understand like the AI's thought behavior and everything else. Could you go over that? And, like, I mean, that's an extension of blueprints, not specifically blueprints, but it's more, you're going to get the basic knowledge of it. And then you're going to be put in a position where you can really flesh out that knowledge for your own projects and for everything you do during the bootcamp. But you need to kind of pursue it because the assignments themselves are pretty open-ended. You could just like do the basics of like, I made a character, I made the move, they can hit a thing, and the AI, like the enemies run around and follow me. But if you want to like take it beyond that, like combo systems or just like flying, gliding, kind of like different movements, different cameras, like 3Cs of character and all that, like you're gonna have to be the one to push for that yourself. And like there definitely is support for that, for learning those through blueprints. But if your question is like, can you develop a whole game in blueprints through this bootcamp? I'm gonna say your chances are slim, because unless you know exactly how small of a game or how specific a game you're trying to produce. And then you can like specifically look for those answers through the people at Circuit Stream or online.
Amazing. Thank you. If I want to make my own game in Unreal Engine, where do I get started?
I'll let you take that one, Vince.
Yeah. Okay. Outside of the bootcamp, and even before you jump into YouTube tutorial, I would say download Unreal, and then download the Unreal projects. There's so many like learning projects on Unreal, and I like Unreal itself has a like your first 5 hours with Unreal Engine. It's like a video series that they produce, which will basically get you set up to using Unreal and looking at some of the projects. And then from there, you can just start like looking into some of the game projects that you'd be interested in developing with Unreal. And they offer a lot of those. Like, so do you want to make a mobile game? They have that. A farming simulator, a game like Minecraft, a generic shooter, or a game kind of like Fortnite. There's a lot of support there. I would say go into those files, mess around, like see how they work. And then once you've kind of like got an idea of the game you want to make and all the systems you need, that's kind of when you can start looking at the focused education. Like, how do I make my character move? How do I initiate combat and blah, blah, and all that, right? It's if you just want to like quick start without any other education, I'd say that's your best bet.
Yeah, and if you're taking a course like the design bootcamp with us, it certainly wouldn't hurt at all to go through that tutorial that Unreal put together, the 5-hour session that they have. Because, like we said before, it's only going to supplement and help you understand the core concepts of everything on both sides of it. Even if you're going through as a designer, and I don't know what the focus is, Vincent, in the Unreal tutorial, but if it's touching on development concepts, you might not end up using a lot of that in the design bootcamp, for example. But having kind of a little bit of a core understanding of both sides of it never hurts. So yeah, things like that could be great ways to supplement the boot camps when you kick them off. Go through and do some extra things through Unreal as well. So, what's your opinion about making RPG Maker, or about using RPG Maker?
Cool tool. You might make a cool game. It might not help you in the gaming industry. I think that's like the best. It might help with the design. I think Vincent can speak more to that. I'm from the development side. You're just using tools that were built for you and kind of putting it together, using a giant tool. So you might make something cool. It might be a really cool story that you might be able to, use or play with your friends or sell. I'm not 100% familiar with RPG Maker. I just know what it is. But I don't think you're not going to learn any technical skills development wise that will propel you in the gaming industry.
Yeah, and I'll add that I see RPG Maker and like Twinery and some of these other tools, like they are tools in your kind of like back pocket, as I've been saying, as a game designer. I would say I've never used RPG Maker myself, but I've seen a lot of the games that come out on Steam that make use of it. Like they always like announce like this was made in RPG Maker, and like it's cool, it's cool. A lot of them are smaller games. I wouldn't personally put a game together in RPG Maker unless I was really like, I want to make a 2D RPG game. What I would say RPG Maker excels at for a game designer is as a prototyping tool. If you want to make a fully fledged RPG and that's your grand scope for a game, and it's like 3D and everything, like let's say you want to make the next Final Fantasy and it's going to be fancy and everything, and you're like ambitious and you want to assemble a team around that, make that game in RPG Maker first, so that you have a prototype and you can sell other people, investors, other people in the industry on it, and put that out there so that it's something that you can show the world, so you can kind of start building the team around it and the fan base maybe. I think it's a great prototyping tool. Unless you really want to make a 2D RPG, then there are successes with it, so it works there, I guess.
Perfect, thank you. And then this one here, how do I know if I'm job ready as a beginner? What should I focus on? Usually what I say to people, it's hard to know. I think for a lot of people, when you're going through a course, you kind of hit a point where you click and realize that you understand kind of the base concepts of a lot of the principles. But what I hear from a lot of other students or people who have graduated and moved into the industry is you don't really know. You just start applying. You just basically, as you go through and you just reach a point where you just start applying for jobs. And I've even heard success stories from students who reached out to companies who weren't even hiring, and they just sent out or emails or reached out on their own and shared their information somehow. But so basically, there's no real point where you'd know for sure that you're ready to start applying for jobs. Oftentimes the feedback you get once you apply will let you know how qualified you are, because they'll kind of, if you go through an interview and they start asking you concepts in development that you have no idea what you're talking about, then you're going to know that you're probably not qualified for that position quite yet. But I see you guys both nodding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to be careful with the term ASAP, because it's the kind of thing that you can't really rush, right? You're going to have to take your time, especially if you're unfamiliar with game development. It's going to take time and learning and practice and building smaller games, right? Like being ready ASAP, it's going to depend on you. And that's it, right? Like it's going to depend on how much work you put in if you're doing the boot camp. It's going to depend on, if you decide after watching this that you still want to just focus on tutorials, which is fine. It's a way to go about it. It's going to depend on how many you watch and apply per day and how much of that information you retain. So that's just kind of complementing what Tyler said.
Yeah. And I would only add to this that like, I don't know how to help you ASAP. But a shortcut, let's say, to kind of help you filter through the weeds is look at the companies that you want to work at, look at the job postings. And if they're not making any job postings for the role that you want, figure out the role that you want in a company and just start searching for that role across every AAA, AA, indie studio, even small projects, and see what they're asking of you. Do they want you to know Unity? Do they want you to know Unreal? Do you need to know how to code? Do you need to have a background in psychology for UX or any other kind of like education? If you know the kind of job you want to get into, it just helps you align and focus on what you want to do instead of like everything else. And this is kind of like back to what I was saying before. The generalist approach just does not work here. There's so many people who the games is a passion, like a passion field, right? So everyone's passionate about games and they want to get into it. So they all get the generalist kind of education, and it's being able to like focus into that like T-shaped individual and focus on the skills that you want for the job that you want. That's really going to help set you apart and like actually get you the interview, or even like before the interview, like get you like a test. You're probably gonna get an industry test, and that's like how they're gonna weed out everyone that they don't let like the AI filter you out first, right? So it's gonna be tough. There's no ASAP unless you have the money to start your own studio and then you just hire people. Maybe that's a route. If you're doing that, like I'm available.
Yeah. I was just gonna say we've got a bunch of people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. So the games we develop in Bootcamp are going to be prototypes or complete games. Also, are there any restrictions while making like any particular type of limit on usage of tools? Can we keep this code in GitHub? Maybe I'll let you answer that one, Leo.
So they are full games. The difference is the difference between like a full game, I guess, and a prototype, right? Is basically you will get an unfinished game, for example, and work towards finishing that game. Some of the projects will be finished games. Some of them will be prototypes because what's important is that you learn the concepts. But the idea is for your capstone that you build a whole game from scratch, right? And that you present that at the end as your final project, and then you present it at pitch day as well. And again, you will have full support of your instructors for that. The code absolutely can be kept in GitHub, and you're going to be required to learn how to use GitHub during the boot camp. And then also, are there any restrictions while making any particular type or limit on usage of tools? Not really. You can use tools however you see fit. Just be fair with yourself, right? You don't want to cheat yourself. Like you're the one paying or would be paying for this program. You're the one trying to learn. If you grab a project that's done from the deep web and you just apply it, like use it as your own, like you use tools for it, then who's really losing? Like it's not us, right? It's going to be yourself. So there's no limit, but we trust students to be fully fair and have integrity when it comes to projects.
Absolutely. Perfect. And we're just about halfway through the questions. So we'll kind of keep trying to power through these as quickly as we can, just for the sake of the audience here too. I think you said this before, but is Godot a good game engine to start with?
Yeah, it's probably a step down from Unity as far as complexity, like what it can do and how hard it is. Both. I think Unity mixes the perfect beginner friendly to like actual useful game engine for companies. So I would start with Unity, even though it might look a little bit harder, it'd be a little bit harder at the beginning. I think it'll take you further than Godot.
Yeah, just really quick too. Godot received a lot of funding last year because of the backlash with Unity. Mm-hmm. So their tools are definitely expanding, but they're definitely not caught up with Unity. But I definitely think it's a space worth looking into and watching for this year and next year. Like a lot of people have moved over to there, and a lot of people are moving on to Unreal Engine from Unity, right? But like Unity still is, like Leo's saying, it's very beginner friendly. It's going to be like universal if you want to just do your own project. It's one of the easier ones to like jump into, and it's free.
Yeah, they've Unreal and Unity, they've really made it user friendly for people to come in. Like even Unreal seems aggressive for somebody coming in, but once you get familiar with the program, you kind of realize that they've made it incredibly user friendly compared to a lot of other development platforms out there. So, all right, I'll stop adding to this. We've got too many questions to go for me to keep adding thoughts. So, you mentioned, I think this was
That was to Vincent. Yeah, Vincent mentioned. Yeah.
It's just kind of personal preference. Like, you know, I was saying earlier, I already have a career that I work in, and you know, it's a bit of the clout, I guess, that I'm like, oh, there's the games that I want to work on, and I don't really want to like get my feet wet in like the mobile space if I can help it. But I mean, like to also kind of walk back on that. If I applied at HoYoverse, like, you know, the people who make Genshin Impact and all that, they're a mobile platform. And I got a job there. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that, right? I think it's definitely kind of, for me, it's just kind of my own expectations. Like, I want to work on really grand kind of games that are like large in scale, and not so much like smaller mobile games that are like a bit more of like a distraction in my mind. Like, that's more of for me, an ethics kind of thing.
Yeah, personal preference for sure too. Yeah. Like what it comes down to. Absolutely. All right. So I finished classes in game dev and game design. I want to focus on game design. I love the conceptual work, and that's what I'm looking at getting into. How can I get there?
Oh, I think I answered this one. I think it was Megan. I answered her in chat earlier.
Oh, perfect.
But I'll just kind of sum up what I was saying, because I was a little confused at first with the question. In terms of, like, they mentioned they had a lot of background in visuals and concept work and narrative work, and I was worried that she meant she wanted to go into game art, or like, you know, the art department. And I just want to differentiate that the game design is not the arts department in a company, and they are very different. But if you want to break into game design and you have a really strong backing in like arts and narrative work, and or sort of visual kind of like ideation and all that, those are all really, really helpful tools for you as a game designer. You'll never be, unless you're like a very small studio where you're wearing every single hat with the team, but you're never really going to be the person who's going to like create the final look and the models of characters, let's say, or environments, because you probably have someone who's specialized in that. But what you can do is help kind of block out those features and those ideas and those concepts early on and communicate across teams. And that's definitely where those skills will shine for you as a game designer, is being able to communicate across teams.
Absolutely. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. I think we have 8 new questions that popped up. Can you speak to why the game industry is on a firing spree over the past year? Is it global economical climates, or something more specific to the game industry or game jobs?
COVID? Post-COVID? It's speculation at this point, right? But it seems to be, there was a lot of overhiring during COVID, and you see it across multiple fields, the tech industry as well, right? That would be my best guess here, without looking at any stats.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it more, but it feels like the market kind of correcting itself, right? Like Vincent said, it peaked during COVID, especially because game development is something that you can very easily do remote, and that's something that, you know, positive. I like to put anything around COVID positive in quotes, but that is something positive that it brought, is that like we can make a game from home very easily. I did it for my bootcamp. People did it for the bootcamp that I taught, right? Like, they didn't have to meet. They didn't need an office or anything like that. But yeah, I think it's the market correcting itself. But like Tyler said, the amount of studios coming up, right? Like, studios are being created, even if they're indie, like, often, right? The percentages are growing up all the time. So there are going to be you know, job opportunities. You just have to be ready to grab them when they knock on your door. Absolutely.
Yeah, I always look at this. I was talking to somebody about this the other day as well. The massive firing spree. We have to kind of look at it a little bit carefully, because if there was it's not necessarily realistic if there was a huge hiring spree over COVID, and we're only seeing a bit of that kind of being let go. There's probably a ton of people that got opportunities during COVID that are still maintaining their positions right now too. So yeah, I'm always just careful not to look at that too negatively. And I get the other side of it. Like you said, I go to GDC and I go to all these conferences and I see all these companies coming up and I just see tons of hiring potential and opportunities. And I know there's a ton of opportunity in the industry. But topically looking from the outside in, when you see a bunch of layoffs, it can look a little scary sometimes. But once you dig into it, it's not that bad. Do you have to attend the boot camp? What if you can all the experience you need online? Oh, this so this is literally the whole point of this presentation today.
Yeah. I will say really quick, you don't have to attend in the sense that all the classes are recorded, but it goes back to what I said, right? Just because you sign up, if you don't, go to classes, you're not going to learn anything. If you don't watch the class, you're not going to learn anything. If you don't do the assignments, you're not going to get your badge at the end. Like, don't spend all of if your goal is to not go to attend classes, don't spend all this money. I don't have to be a financial advisor for that. But if you're really being serious about changing your career, you will have to attend, and the experience you're going to get is vastly improved over what you would get online through any tutorial.
I'll give you my student input here. And this is going to be rough. If you're planning to pay for this education and you have no intention of attending the class, don't do it. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting the instructor's time, and you're hurting your cohort, because especially for game design, your job there is to work with other people. Like you need to practice communication. And in the same veins, like if you attend the class and you don't say a word, you will not make a good game designer in the industry, because if you can't communicate with other people, you're not actually fulfilling your role as a designer. So if you think, like, oh, I paid for it, I watched the classes online, you're actually missing one of the biggest components of this, which you can't get through tutorials as well, is that you have the interfacing with people and you can work with them and develop projects together. Like in my class right now, there's definitely a 50-50 split where some of us, I'm pretty talkative. That's probably why I ended up here today. We are very active in the discussions and communicating with each other. And we're halfway through our bootcamp right now, and a lot of what we're doing right now is we're running game jams with each other. We're just randomly forming groups and running game jams to like kind of practice, like, can we make this small game in a week with this concept? Let's go. And the truth is, most of the people who have never said a peep or who don't show up to class, they've been just weeded out. Like, we don't acknowledge them, or they just don't show up to class. And so they're missing, I'd say 50% of the course, probably 75% of the course, just by basically not attending. And not actually building on these expertise. Like, how are they going to run a game jam on their own in such a short time? It's a lot of work, right? So it's like, please attend, please contribute. My class basically told me if I had something to say at this thing, it's like, tell people to speak up and attend these classes, because you are hurting so many individuals apart from your own wallet by just not showing up.
Absolutely. And I think we covered this question from both sides. If the question was, if I pay for the bootcamp, do I need to attend? We kind of covered that. If it's, do I need a bootcamp versus learning alone on my own through YouTube tutorials? We've kind of answered that as well. Just a lot more structure that comes through any sort of organized education like this too. So hopefully we covered the answer there. I'm hoping we did. And then this one here, I can answer this one, I guess. What is the ratio or percentage of students who have graduated the bootcamp who successfully gotten a job in the industry? I certainly can't speak to everybody for all of the students that we've had go through, but I believe I had a stat in the presentation as well on this. You can go back and look at the recording, but and please don't quote me. I hate when I don't have the stat in front of me to say it, but I believe it was over 90% of the previous class had received relevant jobs in the industry from the most recent cohort that we had go through. So if you want more information on that, Wanai is probably the best person. She's the student outcomes manager. She can share all of those sort of stats and details with you, but just reach out and let us know. But high percentages that we've had so far for people going through. So, and then this question is for both Vincent and Leo. What is the minimum hardware requirement for these courses? Great question.
I'll say you need to run Unity. It doesn't matter if it's super slow, super fast. If your computer can get Unity running and it's not completely laggy, like it depends on you. If you're willing to deal with a laggy Unity, I'm not. You're okay, but it needs to be able to run and render everything in Unity.
Unreal's even harder in that it's going to ask for a lot. Like we've had people try to run the course on laptops and hit and miss there. Also really hard to follow along in the course if you're working off a laptop screen and don't have a second monitor. That's definitely something that I didn't realize people were dealing with until we
That's true.
had a discussion about it in class. You're going to have to be, if you're watching your instructor in Unreal and they're doing something and you only have that screen, you're not able to follow along. Or when you switch to your Unreal, you're not seeing what they're doing. And then the only other thing I would say is I'm an industrial designer as a background, right? I love Apple. I love their products. I support their products. You cannot do these courses on a MacBook. The MacBooks are powerful enough, but Unity and Unreal run into so many problems on MacBooks. I can't say for sure on Unity, but so far we've had 2 people in my cohort who started off on like MacBook Pros, and every time we were doing something on Unreal, it's like they were the ones who were like, I have an issue that no one else has. Why is it? It's like, oh, I'm on a Mac. So something to look out for.
Yeah, for Unity, a Mac can work. You're going to run into, like Vincent said, problems that probably no one else is having, but you can work around them. If like, I'm not going to tell you to go buy a Windows PC, because it's expensive, obviously, but it can work. You might just have to do a little bit of working around.
Yeah, we have quite a few students that end up taking the courses with Apple computers on both the development and design side, and sometimes they can run into more issues. But like Leo said, there's workarounds. So if you don't want to worry about the workarounds, if you have the financial means and you're able to secure kind of a PC, it's usually the recommendation for anything like this. I don't develop or design, but I personally have flipped back and forth on my preference between PC and Apple over the years. Currently, I'm on a PC, but my last laptop right before this was a MacBook Pro. So we'll kind of see how it goes. And if I get into development and designing, I'll probably have to make a more detailed decision on that. So
I do want to endorse really quick the monitor's advice, because I have 3 and I can't imagine myself without one of them. So you need at least 2 for sure.
Yeah, monitors are great. Even, I mean, I'm not developing and designing. I'm working in the industry on this side, and I'm looking at 2 monitors right now. Yeah. So this question is again for both Vincent and Leo. If I made one game from Unreal Engine and one from Unity, and I had experience from my game like Blueprint and C++ and C# experience, will that look good for job interviews? Yes, but go ahead. I'll let you guys answer.
Yeah, 100%. The more experience you can have, the better. But I will echo what Vince has said before. What experience is that, right? Are you a beginner at all 3? Because if that's the case, then you're better off being an expert in Unity and C# or an expert in Unreal and C++ and Blueprint, right? During my boot camp, I put my feet in Unreal real quick. I betrayed the boot camp for like a week. And I was like, oh, this is so powerful. I can do so many things with this. And then I was like, but it's also so complicated, and I'm trying to learn an entire different language. Do I want to be a beginner intermediate in both? Or do I just want to be a Unity expert because there are so many opportunities with Unity already? And so I took that route, and I'm very glad I did, because I don't think I would have had the projects that I had by the end of the boot camp if I had kind of tried to divide my attention.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, Leo, you summed it up really well. The only thing I would add is, and this is maybe more specific to the game design side, is focus on the platform, the engine that you want to work towards for a career, maybe, or for your own personal projects. But don't look past the fact that what you're here, what one of the biggest benefits you're learning is the concepts, right? And those concepts are applicable in both engines and across engines. The only caveat there is, like, obviously one's C#, one's C++, and then if you're not learning coding, it's Blueprints versus Unity's visual coding language, which this is my bias, but I've heard it's a little underbaked.
It's new,
yeah. So focus where you can, but don't be afraid if you are, like if you really want to learn Unreal and you're focusing on Unity because of a job, you pick up those concepts. You could always move over to Unreal later. And like, as long as you have those concepts in your back pocket, you're just transferring skills over, right? And learning a new interface.
Absolutely. All right. I can answer this one. I shared it in the presentation as well, so I'm not quite sure if this question came in before or after that. But the boot camps are $14,995 for both the development and the design boot camps. If you have any questions about that, or questions about the payment plan options or anything, you can just reach out to us. Admissions@circuitstream.com is the best email, just generic email that you can reach out to. My email is tyler@circuitstream.com. So you can always reach out to me directly if you have any questions. I can always point you in the right direction there. But hopefully that answers the question. And Peter, you will get a copy recording of the presentation. It'll have all the pricing information and stuff and a couple of the slides there too, if you want to go back to it. So, and for internships, doing a school computer science major going into my second year. Now I'm only taking data structures. Do you think only now I can get internships? What else kind of classes do they expect?
I can't really speak to computer science like as a major in general. I took 2 years of it in college. I'm not sure what else they expect if you're trying to go into like software engineering. We do cover data structures, for example, in the game development bootcamp as well, because that's important for you to know when you're thinking about creating a game, what kind of data structure to use. But as far as internship, I'm going to echo what Tyler said a little bit earlier, which is apply. You lose nothing by applying. You already have the no, right? Like you already have the negative unless you apply. And if you get an internship or excuse me, an interview for an internship, like Tyler said again, and you bomb it, then you know you're not ready. And that interview will give you the hint of what to learn for your next interview, right? Like what didn't you know? What do you have to get better at? It's all about self-awareness and like teaching yourself the things that you need to know. But if you're doing, if you're going through college, you got a couple more years still, at least, you'll be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the answer to this is yes, but does it teach you industry jargon and terms?
Yeah, not all of them. I don't know all of the terms, but it does. What we think to teach you, it'll come out sooner or later.
Yeah, as a non-developer and designer myself, I can say that there are absolutely terms and jargon that come up that I have no idea what they mean sometimes. So you're definitely learning those concepts in the class. Do you think the GDC Expo is worth it? It's $250. I can just say, I can give you a couple answers to this. So I've attended GDC in the past. It's an expensive conference to go to. It's in an expensive city. It's in San Francisco. So Ray, I'm not sure where you're located if you have the means to get there. If it's financially, okay for you, like if you're able to do it, GDC is an amazing conference. There was over 35,000 people when I was there, massive amounts of developers and designers. Last year they announced Unreal's new everything, basically, the new Unreal Engine and all their new installments with Fortnite, and just, it's a massive conference. But my biggest takeaway, like there, lots of lights, lots of flashy things, but my biggest takeaway was the connections that I made at that conference. I connected with, people at Epic Games and people through Unreal, and I made contacts at Snapchat, and we've done sessions together with a bunch of these different companies. If you have the means to get there, Ray, it's an amazing conference to go to. Honestly, any game development conference is great, but this one in particular is just one of the biggest ones in the US that happens. So, and another piece of advice, you're going to miss it for this year because the conference is coming up very soon, but pay attention for next year. There's volunteer opportunities at a lot of these conferences as well. I know that a few people in my personal network have volunteered and ended up going to conferences like GDC. And you're going to be working and volunteering while you're there, but you're still in the same space, in the same room as all these people. And it gives you opportunity to, bump shoulders and have conversations and connections that way. So that's just my own little personal piece of advice on GDC because I've been there before. All right, my skills are story, art, concept, mood, etc. How does that translate into making connections in the industry with finding a job?
So this is Megan's question again from earlier.
Yep.
And so actually, I'll just build on this a little bit more as well. I think if you actually have really strong skills in these other areas that aren't related to game design and you still want to dip your toes in, consider game jams and put yourself out there as having these skills in story, art, concept, mood, and etc. Like for a longer game jam, these are very necessary skills. Like they might be looking for someone who can create like visual art or 3D characters and environments and such. And like that's a good way to at least break into making a game, being part of a team, no matter how big or small. You can definitely leverage these skills, even if you're not actively like working as a game designer. But it's at least putting you in that space and allowing you to think with a team about how to be a game designer or a game developer, and seeing how other people might, work in those specific areas and learn from them.
And also the career side of the bootcamp would teach you how to word your skills to put on a resume in order to make it more visually appealing for the people hiring for the game industry. They did mine with streaming and acting. You're a lot closer than I was, so they can figure out how to do that.
Perfect. Next question is, if I was going to get a bachelor's degree in game design, would this bootcamp be a good thing to put in my portfolio? From absolutely, yeah. I'll let you maybe speak to that, Vincent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to admonish you for pursuing a bachelor's. I think it's a very good thing to do, and like a university experience is very valuable for more than just like pursuing a job, right? It's like 4 years, best time of my life, I would say. But if you were contemplating between attending this boot camp so that you could have a portfolio piece to submit for a bachelor's program in game design, I think you're doubling up on the same thing. If anything, I would, and this is personal preference here, pursue the bachelor's first, come out of it and see, like, did it actually help you achieve the things you wanted? And if you know, like, it's a university degree, so it might not be as focused as you need it to be as a boot camp. Maybe after that, see if then the boot camp is still valuable in helping you focus on the skills that you actually need, or gives you the time to like build the portfolio that you need. Like in this case, because you're talking about attending both already. But realistically, I would do one, try to see if you can break into the industry, and then from there, reconsider and recontextualize like what's realistic. And maybe it's not a boot camp, maybe it's a master's, or maybe it's like you just need a couple of years or months to put into building a better game or better portfolio, and that would be what gets your foot through the door.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Just checking out. We've got a bunch more that have come through. I'm just going to try and get through these with you guys as quickly as we can. So the book offer, yeah, the book I had shared today, that was for the upcoming registration. Although if you were looking at registering for any of the 2 upcoming bootcamp cohorts for development or design, I'm sure we could still make sure that we get a copy of that book over to you. It's a new release from our instructor manager, so I was excited to include that in the presentation here today. So can I get a job in the industry if I have projects to show but no proper university education or a portion of it? And I mean, the answer is absolutely. We have lots of students that go through that have secured jobs without a university education going through boot camps like this. But I can see you both nodding a lot there. It's I would safe to assume you both agree. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Sorry, I'm trying so hard not to rush through these questions, but I'm like, we're at the 2-hour mark now, and I feel
you can, because people care about your projects. People care about the skills that you're able to show in the projects. It doesn't matter if you have the, like a college degree on game development. I don't. So.
And I connect with a lot of the hiring managers at companies. And in fact, I put a lot of people in the rooms for pitch days. Those are through a lot of my connections. And most of those hiring managers would say that they're looking at applicable skill sets and what the people are bringing to the table versus education. Education, of course, is important and what you know, but what you can apply and what you can show that you know knowledge of is going to be more important usually in interviews. So.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that the games industry is one of those employers that actually has a lot of people working in the industry who don't actually have degrees in games. They come from all sorts of like other areas, like like I was saying myself, I come from design. There's a lot of designers who basically go into games. A lot of people who were in the tech industry who go into games, right? Like most of the time, they're not looking at your education, but like kind of what other skills you bring to the table. If you're specifically focusing on being a game designer through 4 years of university and possibly master's, it really like singles you out as like only having this one specific area. And there's a lot of people who do that as well, right? So it just helps to kind of have that diverse education, or to just approach it as like, you don't need to have the bachelor's or master's. It's okay.
Absolutely. And I know we've touched on this a few times. Key differences between design and development is just kind of the core principles. Development is going to be really focused on coding and learning coding languages and kind of applying that, whereas design is not going to be focused in that. But there's other areas within design like this. I'm gonna lead this into the next question because it kind of makes sense with it. But does game design cover level design, for example? So maybe I'll let you touch on that, Vincent.
Yeah. So we have a there's a big section on level design, and just, I mean, level design as a basic function within Unreal of like, how do you make a level? How do you white box something? Not so much like, how do you take a level from 0 to 100, like something you'd expect in a AAA game. As a game designer, realistically, when it comes to level design, what you're doing is probably white boxing a level, which is designing the initial prototype of that level, allowing that level to be tested by the team, and then like making design decisions on top of that after. That's kind of that's a very core principle to game design, is like you're rapidly prototyping, putting that prototype in front of stakeholders and team members and yourself, testing it, and then fixing it, looking for problems or like trying to solve the problems that you've set out for yourself, discovering new problems, and iterating. You will learn how to do level design, but if you're talking about like level design to the level of like, like fully polished visual assets and everything, that's not really the focus of the program, nor is it the focus of a game design role.
But if those are areas that you want to expand on afterwards, that's where understanding core concepts and then seeking out videos on YouTube or different sorts of tutorials can definitely help you. Sorry, I just saw an opportunity to add to your point earlier there, Vincent.
Yeah.
So another question, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions left. So does it talk better about myself in the industry if you are multitasking, such as also composing music and making the visuals as well as doing all of the programming?
I think it goes back to what we said before, right? If you're an expert in those 3 things, then absolutely, right? But most likely, unless you're working in an indie studio that needs, those 3 things, most likely you're going to be applying for one of those positions, right? So, like visual designer or sound designer or game developer, right? So it definitely helps to have that experience. You're able to give more insight if insight is needed. But you're probably going to be applying for a specific one, unless, again, you're doing something where you need to wear many hats.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then let's see. How do you get qualification for basic qualifications, 3 years in game dev or a bachelor degree in comp science for an entry-level role? So I mean, all different types of roles are going to have different sorts of qualifications that you're gonna find. Like, different postings are gonna have different opportunities. But maybe maybe I'll let you guys touch on this one as well.
I think it depends on kind of what you are trying to achieve, right? Like if you want to do game development, then there's no reason for you to go broader and do like a bachelor degree in computer science, right? Like you're better off doing stuff that is focused on game development. But if you're still discovering, which is completely fair, if you're still like, do I want to go game? Do I want to go software engineering in a more broad way, then try to explore that, and then you can always focus back on game development in the future. But if you're sure from now, like if hey, I want to do game development no matter what, then done.
Yeah, only to add on, like if you want to be in games, make games. That's it.
Yep.
You just need to make games. If you're playing it safe, get the comp sci background. You might not stay in games in the future, and that's a lot safer.
So this one, can you suggest some websites or YouTube websites regarding different positions in game dev? So if like, are you looking for career opportunities, or are you looking for like different types of roles that are available within the industry just to kind of learn more about it? I mean, I have some information in my presentation today about the different types of roles. If you're looking into that, I'd say maybe just go online and just do some general research through Google and just kind of look up game development roles and different types of game development positions available in different types of studios. If I'm reading that correctly, but if you're looking for career opportunities, there's probably different hubs as well that you could look for online. But do you guys have any advice in those 2 areas?
I can go first, Vincent.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I think you can look on YouTube and you can look kind of what Vincent said earlier, like through job postings, right? Like what are people like you might just type in like video game, right? On LinkedIn, and just like what shows up, like what are the different positions that you can have. I think in general, you can have, you're going to have development, you're going to have modeling, right? So like 3D modeling, you're going to have an art designer for more of the 2D You're going to have an UI expert, UX expert, probably. You're going to have a game designer. Like, there are several positions that need to be filled. But go through YouTube, like look for stuff like that, keywords, and then go through job postings as well.
Yeah, and only to add, like, it depends. Like, know where you want to be, right? AAA, indie, or even smaller. Because if you look at a AAA posting, they're gonna break down, like, they're not gonna ask for a game designer specifically. They might say game designers 3Cs, which is like character, controller. I'm forgetting the third. Sorry. But like, they're going to ask for very niche areas of game design because of how massive these companies are. They're not going to ask you to be like a generalist game designer. If you're looking at indie, they're going to say like, yeah, we just want you to be on the arts team. We need you to be a game dev. We need you to be the game designer. So really kind of consider where you want to end up. And, like we were saying earlier, look at those job postings, pick out the skills. And then just generally, like, knowing what to search for is already the next best step. I mean, YouTube, sure, Google, ChatGPT, all of these can help supplement that and like field you into the right areas. GameDeveloper.com is a really great resource, but like and they have great videos, but you'd need to know like what videos to look for. Like, do you want videos on 3Cs, right, et cetera, or like how to write a GDD, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. We ran a session just recently through our Canadian university partners, and we had speakers from Ubisoft and Electronic Arts. And I believe it was the Electronic Arts speaker who was sharing a bunch of different types of game positions or titles that you wouldn't even think were applicable within his team that he has at EA. And they were working on the promotions for games. So they were still using game development and coding and putting all these different things together for the promotion aspects of gaming, of games that are going to be coming out in the next year or two. So anyways, just to kind of add to your point, for anybody who's interested, feel free to go to Circuit Stream's YouTube channel. Just look up the Canadian Industry Workshop that we ran in the last couple of months here. And you might find some more valuable advice from the speakers from EA and Ubisoft who were there as well. So. Okay, so the first question: not everyone has a lot of money to drop for a boot camp, so it's possible to get knowledge you need online. Is there a scholarship or something? So this is where I'd say, I mean, we do have payment plans. So if that's within your means, I would say to explore the payment plan options. If you were looking at taking a course like this, usually that helps supplement the cost a little bit instead of having to pay for something like this up front. We don't have any scholarships on the go right now. We don't have any promotions, or there are some promotions that run throughout the year, like Black Fridays and things like that can happen. But so I'd say maybe keep an eye out for that. But in the immediate future, if you were looking at taking one of the courses, the better thing to explore would probably be the payment plan options that we have. We do, of course, understand that this is money and it's an investment. So the biggest thing is make sure that this is what you want to do. If this is something that you're interested in, and you're willing to commit to it, like these two gentlemen have said, don't pay for it and then not commit to it. Make sure that you're interested and you're going to want to commit as you go through. And if that is the case and you are in a position to explore the payment plans, that's probably what I would say. If not, just reach out to our team here and we can keep you in the loop if we have any sort of promotions that run or that occur throughout the year. So. We're down to 2 questions, guys. 2 more questions here. If you don't have any experience, what should be my job expectations once I finish the boot camp? If the question's been answered, sorry, but maybe just a bit of a recap. So yeah, we can touch on that again.
I will say your expectations are completely based on the work that you put in during the 6 hours. Like I keep hitting on the same bell, but it's completely true. The fact that you don't have any experience it's gonna be a hindrance in the beginning. If you know you're gonna apply for the bootcamp, what I said before, right? Make sure you get some of the experience, just like what Unity looks like and what C# does and how to like understand what it's trying to say, right? Just a little bit, and then you're gonna be good. And then depending on the work that you put in through the 6 months, then your job expectations are gonna grow or lower. But it depends on how much you dedicate yourself.
Yeah, and honestly, like, as long as if you come out of the bootcamp and you still have like that work ethic of like, I need to keep making games, and you just keep making games, joining game jams or working on your personal projects and like making sure that they're showcase worthy and fill into a portfolio and like show that skill that you really want to put out there so that you can get hired for it. I mean, there's no guarantee you'll get that job, but you'll definitely find a company that's looking for that, right? Whether that's like AAA or lower, like indie, or even like small teams. Like you might just be picked up for someone else's passion project, and they might be willing to pay, right? Or maybe you just really love what they're trying to make, and you guys can work together, and that can become something. It's just, you got to put in the work, because otherwise, it's a very, very competitive field at the end of the day.
Totally. And this one we've touched on several times. How do we build connections in the gaming industry? Just put yourself out there, be involved. If you take a boot camp like this, be involved in the class, network with other people. If you have the opportunity to connect through our Discord while you do something like that, network. If you have the opportunity to join other Discord servers, if you can join game jams, if you can link yourself up with like-minded people and you put yourself out there, you're going to network, and you're going to get some strong connections in the industry. I think every industry is about connections. You have to have the foundation of skills, but connections help you through life in general. And so I said one more question before. This one's not really a question, just says thank you to all of us. So thank you to Harry Q. And then if we don't end up doing the bootcamp as our checklist of things we should learn in order to start working in the industry. So this is kind of like, it sums up the whole point of the presentation today is you can start to try and learn things on your own, Chris, but without structured education and a course or something that's going to kind of teach you the foundation or the foundation of skills rather that you need for development and design, it's going to be really difficult. But having said that, feel free to check out things on YouTube. Go check out Udemy. There's some resources out there, but my strongest recommendation would be to find some sort of structured education if you're looking to learn development or design there. And that's it. I think we've hit all the questions here. We still have 41 people in the room with us right now. So thank you guys so much for hanging on and going through the whole presentation. I know we said it was about an hour to an hour and a half, and here we are at just over 2 hour mark. So thank you, Leo. Thank you, Vincent, for taking the time as well to go through all of this with us today. The information that you guys shared is invaluable. Honestly, the people in the audience, there's probably a massive amount of takeaway here from what you guys shared, which is just exactly what we wanted today. So thank you so much. Leo, you've done a few of these with me before. So thanks again for joining me. And Vincent, this was your first time. Hopefully this went well for you. It was a pleasure having you here with us too. I can see all the comments coming through. Thank you. Thanks for the information.
One last thing I want to throw in the chat. I'm going to throw my LinkedIn there. I did before. So if you guys want to connect, just make sure you put in the message like, hey, coming from the CircuitStream info session. So I know that you're not a total stranger. I'm more than happy to connect, answer any questions in the future about this or anything that you have. Thank you all for staying and asking so many good questions. Sometimes we don't even have, 10. So you guys were a great crowd. And thank you, Tyler, for having us again.
Of course. And Vincent, if you have a LinkedIn too, feel free to share the link in the chat there if you want. No rush, no pressure.
Sure.
And my LinkedIn, for anybody, I don't have the link on me at the moment, but it's my name, Tyler Trapp, and I work at CircuitStream. If you type those keywords into Google, you're going to find my LinkedIn. So feel free to add me. I'd be happy to kind of connect with any of the folks in here after the presentation today. So without further ado, thank you so much. Everybody have an amazing Tuesday, and we will look forward to seeing everybody back up for the next session that we have. I believe we have one coming up next week as well. So stay tuned for that. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Have a great day.